First item is, if I could see your agenda, Sam. Thank you. We're going to interview, vote, and appoint a member to the Barnstable County Assembly delegate. Thank you, Mr. Suso. And the first name on the list is Daniel Gessen. Daniel ran for the position last time, and I barely eked it out and stole the election from him. And I shouldn't have. Welcome here, or anywhere you like.
Signature number 3.
Welcome. So we know you're interested in the assembly position, and wondering if you could just share a little bit of how you've been kind of keeping up with it, if you have, and what your feelings are. Before you get started, I just wanted to say that our select board did take a position on the ARPA funds, which we hope that whichever whichever person, are you running also?
Yes.
Whoever takes this spot will hopefully support the position of the board, because we did have a pretty strong position. We sent 2 letters. The first letter was asking them to expedite the process of forwarding the ARPA funds. The second one was more explicit to say that Falmouth was hoping that the funds would just be distributed directly to the town by population. So, of course, I'm not going to hold you to a vote, but I just want to make you both aware that that is the position of the board that was voted. So we hope you'll support that, whoever takes that job.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know, my name is Dan Gessen. I ran for the Assembly, as Doug was saying, in 2020. I think the reason I ran for the Assembly for the most part was that county government is unique to Cape Cod, pretty much in Massachusetts. We're one of the only counties in Massachusetts that actually has a county government such as this. And of the counties that do have a government, we have the most robust by far. And I think that's important. There's a lot of issues up and down the Cape that towns share, whether it's affordable housing, wastewater management, dealing with our unique environment here on the Cape, as well as our unique business climate. I think that there's a lot of issues that our county is able to counter regionally with out-of-the-box solutions that end up being efficient and save town money in the end. So that kind of out-of-the-box approach is what initially drew me to county government. As we all know, and as you mentioned, with ARPA funding, the role of the county in the daily lives of town government has only grown and has only become more important. When it comes to the ARPA funding, I agree in large part with the positions taken by the town, because firstly, it's a shame that it's being dealt with in this way. I think that the county really benefits from being a cohesive body, and when, regardless of the decision, it turns into a combative situation with the county commissioners and the assembly of delegates, there's little benefit to be derived from it. I think that it's in a unique position to have this amount of money, twice the amount that they'll have in any other normal year, and dedicated, and something that they can dedicate either to town-wide or regional projects. And on the second position of the town, it is the American Rescue Plan Act. The idea is to relieve the pressures put on by the pandemic on local businesses as well as local infrastructure, and also appreciate building back better as we recover from the pandemic. And I think few bodies are able to approach that as effectively as the towns are. I think that there is some plans in the county government to distribute it regionally, but I don't think they'll be able to do it as efficiently, as effectively as the towns would be in that position. And on top of that, I don't think it's a wise use of resources to start building out bureaucracy with several $1 million just to then decide how to distribute that money, and thereby cutting into the positive effect it could have to begin with.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else you want to share? We'll ask Mr. O'Connor.
Well,
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, because we received an email that basically said that you owe $1,000 to the state for a fine. Could you address that, please?
Absolutely. So I was made aware of that this morning as well. It had to do with a clerical issue at OCPF from the last time around that I ran for this
OCPF is
Office of Campaign and Political Finance in Massachusetts. And I think they do a great job. I think that not only do they make sure that candidates stay on top of their reporting, they also are very transparent and make it so the public can access this information clearly and concisely, so that they can trust where their representatives are getting their money from, and they can believe that the motivations behind the representatives' votes, decisions are always set correctly. And to do that, in large part, to be effective, they do have to create these high fines. I think it was $50 a day when something was misreported, so that's how it added up to a large amount, like $1,000, I think, around those marks over the last couple months. But when I was made aware of it, I reached out to OCPF. Apparently it had to do with the miscommunication as to whether or not my campaign had been, quote, active, which it hadn't been for the last 2 years. So once I clarified that, they were able to resolve the issue paperwork-wise, and given the fact that it was an oversight and a miscommunication, they're looking to waive the fee. But it doesn't seem to be anything beyond the clerical mistake on that part.
Okay. Any other questions?
And we do have that in an email. We have that documentation.
We saw it.
Yeah, I forwarded that earlier.
That was really my question.
Anything else for Mr. Gesson?
I'll just ask, I'm assuming this is the case because you're applying for it, but you're obviously getting ready to graduate. You know, are your plans going to be such post-graduation that you feel you'll be able to meet all of the demands of, that required of the assembly?
Absolutely. I think the assembly, given, as I was saying, the out-of-the-box thinking that's required for it, is essentially you get out of it and the town gets out of it what you're willing to put into it. And I think that's unique of some other positions because oftentimes you have a certain amount of tasks you have to accomplish in order to be productive in that position. Being representative of Falmouth, I think the give back, the return on investment that we're going to get is going to be directly proportionate to the dedication of the person that's going to be representing them. And I'm, as we said, graduating next month. But even before that, I plan on attending all the meetings in person over the month of April and May. And after that, I look forward to being in Falmouth, being able to be there much closer to Barnstable than Amherst, but continuing to keep up with everything and attending any possible additional committee meetings, either remotely for the time being, but in person once I get back.
And are you moving back to the address that's listed here, 36%?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay. Mr. O'Connor?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jack O'Connor, had an opportunity to make the application when I saw the opportunity come up. I've been down in Falmouth since 1999, back and forth, full-time as of about 3 years ago. I just recently retired, so I have a lot of time available, and I wanted to make the best use of it. I thought the best use of my time now was to be able to give back to the community. This seemed like a great way to do that. I've wanted to, I've enjoyed, I've always followed what's going on in Falmouth, and I've enjoyed living here. I think that this would be a great way for me, given the experience that I've lived 35 years in finance. I've come with that background. I've dealt with bond issuances from towns. I've had relationships with cities like Boston, LA, Oakland. Actually presented to the investment committee for Falmouth in the past. So I have a great deal of experience interacting with towns, cities in Boston, but also in Massachusetts, but also national. And I think I'm fortunate that I'm in a position where I can spend a great deal of time with this and make my experience available. I think that's an important part of really what I bring.
Right.
Making it a little difficult for us, huh? Questions from the board? Mr. O'Connor?
I'll just ask, because I think that, have you been able to attend or watch any of the assembly?
Good and bad news of the pandemic is that
I know.
you can watch things, you can see an awful lot. I'm not a politician, but I don't have aspirations for that necessarily. I have aspirations to help town of Falmouth in a capacity as it relates to the funds themselves and the question about the county itself and how that should work. I really do believe that this particular allocation of assets should go to the towns directly. I think this is more of a one-time event, and I think it's really important that it be allocated. I think that there's my concern is at the county level that you have a situation where you're used to having a certain amount of money, and then don't have the following year. And that is going to be the case here. So my concern is definitely that we allocate the assets to the towns and let them make the best decisions on it. I don't think there's any question that that's the right thing. I can't be particular with this. I see a lot of value in a lot of the things that the county does, you know, from the services they provide to children's services, things like that, all for that. And I think there's a place for it. You know, as Dan mentioned, the county government is something that's evolving. Cape does have it, but there are other counties in Massachusetts that have had a lot going on. I am a believer that the government, you know, run at the most basic level is most critical. And so that would be my thought process. I would be going in to make sure that Falmouth is represented first and foremost.
Okay, yes, Sam?
Yeah, they're representing us. I mean, knowledge of the critical issues that are facing us, which that money could be invested in to mitigate. From your perspective, what are the major issues that Falmouth is facing right now that really that money could be invested in?
I think there's a number of things. I think, you know, wastewater treatment, with the treatment of all the waters, and that's, you know, I know that that's something that the county thinks that maybe should be done at a Cape level, but I think that there are things in Falmouth that there. I think that there's, you know, an issue, not necessarily that we're looking for affordable housing, but affordable housing is a significant issue here. I do think that there's a little bit of a bubble. It's going to burst and it's going to bring it back down. That's not going to solve the problem for a lot of people. And then I think also, you know, my wife is in the midst of finalizing her addiction counseling certification. Is going to school, went back to school for that. We both made a decision a couple of years ago that we were in a position to give back to the community. She decided that was the best way for her to do it, to earn that accreditation. We think that that's a significant issue both in Falmouth and throughout the Cape, and that's something that we absolutely have to address in the deal. So those would be some of the things I think we could on transportation. I think having transportation to get all around Falmouth in an effective way needs to be addressed as well. Those are just some of the things that really stand out in my mind.
Anybody else?
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Any first thoughts? We have a couple of really excellent candidates for the position.
Number 6, we didn't receive application for.
Mr. Milosevic, Mr. Milosevic.
Correct, we did not.
Nothing.
He did not return anything.
Okay, just checking that, thank you.
I don't know whether I should be recusing myself or not, but because I was involved with the schools, and I know Dan's involvement while he was in the Falmouth High School, and then his brother following him, his involvement. I've been very impressed with the level of kind of community responsibility that both of them have displayed, and their family as well. So I would just say that he's a bright young man, and youth is going to be important, I think, in representing that part of our population. I'm very strongly inclined to, well, in fact, I'll nominate Dan Gesson as our replacement Assembly of Delegates candidate.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay, all those in favor of appointing Mr. Gesson?
Aye.
Kind of committed to that. I'm sorry we didn't know I was going to have such a good second candidate, but I really feel like since Dan ran for the position before, he's been keeping up on it. I know he has because he's been in touch with me about it. So I feel like I think it's the right thing to do, but I hope you'll consider something like the Finance Committee.
I was actually
One of these.
also going to suggest the EDIC. EDIC
Oh, right.
has openings on their
Yes.
board, and I think you would fit very well.
That's actually a really good point. That's a good match.
A person with your background would really be able to help us out a lot.
For EDIC, because you come with that sort of finance and business acumen, that is a piece that they really always need support with. And that would be actually really, that's a great point that there are openings there. So if you're willing to look at it, that information
Open
should,
to
is it
having
open
a
on that
discussion,
EDI
clearly.
Is it on the EDIC website?
Yes, I believe it is, but anyway, yeah, the offices are actually in the Lawrence building, you know, the Lawrence School building, back behind the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce building. So if you go in there and just ask for the EDIC, they're usually in there in the morning. If you go online also, you could just get the telephone number and call them.
But we'd really love, with this type of resume and this type of experience, it would be wonderful to have you working on behalf of the town, and that might be a really great fit.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now we're going to revisit the application for new alcoholic beverages common victual license, Tiger Ramen Incorporated, DBA Tiger Ramen, located at 587 Main Street, Falmouth, continued for March 28, 2022. We're bringing this back because there was some question as to whether or not the abutters list was executed accurately.
We
do so?
confirmed that it has been.
Okay.
It's a different standard than the one that ZBA has, for instance, which Rob was the one he was familiar with. It does not include someone has a business across the street. They're immediately adjacent to butters. And those were all contacted based on the normal list and notified, so there's nothing that would prevent the board from acting at this point.
Then I would move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Authorize the town manager and town council to respond to an open meeting law complaint filed by Ronald Beatty regarding select board meetings on March 14th, 22nd, and March 29th, 2022. Any discussion?
No.
I move to authorize the town manager and town council to respond to the open meeting law complaint filed by Mr. Beatty. Our select board meeting is March 14th, March 22nd, and March 29th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discuss and vote motions and reports to town meeting as needed. Discussion and vote on town meeting Article 26 to clarify language as follows. And we're going to add in the line which was calling for the date, and we're going to write with the first election being held at the next municipal election. And the intent of this is whether it's a regularly scheduled election or special election, the language covers either one. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I would, since we have some people from Falmouth that here, can we just have them speak to if this language is going to cause any issues for them?
No, this is Gaylord. I'm happy with, FalmouthNet is okay with this language. We just hope that on the floor of town meeting, it will be explained that this could be either could be a special election.
Okay.
Could you identify yourself, Mark?
Oh, I thought I
No,
did.
he did. He did.
I'm sorry, excuse me, I missed it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I did receive a call from someone from Falmouth that this weekend concerned about it, so as long as we're okay.
Yeah, and I thank you. I talked with Doug and David Vieira, and they both assured me that this would be the special meeting would be covered under this. And I also thank Peter for letting me know about this.
Okay. So, do we need to make a motion that that's the
We
language?
do.
Okay.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Discuss and consider and vote date for November 2022 town meeting. Have any suggestions, Mr. Suso?
Monday, November 14th, Diane took a look at the calendar for November, and that Monday seems to be the ideal one, falling in between a normally challenging month.
All right. We'll be meeting 3 weeks in a row. Is
Well,
that okay?
I will not be here for the 7th, I don't know whether
Okay.
it's
That schedule may change by the time we get to it.
Okay.
I would move that we set November 14th, 2022 as the town meeting date, next town meeting.
Second.
Pardon?
Whatever you guys want to do.
Which she said with a smile.
Well, hopefully I'll still be here in town meeting, just not.
Okay, is there a motion to, you made that motion?
I made a
Second it.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Other business? Any other business, Mr. Suso? Or Mr. Johnson stuff?
No other business to bring forward.
Okay.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
would like to just I forgot to mention it before this agenda, but at the next meeting, next Monday, I'd like to discuss a potential date for us to do a joint meeting with the Affordable Housing Committee.
Okay,
So maybe we can come up with some possible dates for that.
Possible.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.